Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the CFA Society Sri Lanka, I would like to welcome all of you for today's webinar on ChatGPT, exploring the buzz, the evolution, and the prospects in finance and investment, conducted conducted in association with Dialogue. I'm very pleased to note that we have received an overwhelming response for today's webinar, and it shows the enthusiasm and importance of this topic. This webinar is organized as a part of our continuing education initiatives of the CFA Society Sri Lanka. The main backdrop of the webinar is the emergence of ChatGPT and how large language models have become a defining aspect of the current context. It is evident that these technological models bring forth significant opportunities as well as potential pitfalls for the finance and investment management industries. I'm sure during this session, you will be able to understand the origins and hype around ChatGPT and explore ways to effectively integrate this cutting-edge technology into finance and investment management. Additionally, I thought it is opportune for me to mention that the CFA Institute has played a proactive role in bringing this emerging technology to the forefront as its key stakeholders. Recently, CFA Institute published a handbook on AI and big data applications in investments. I request you to read our publication as it will help you to increase your knowledge on how to integrate AI and big data into investing. Without taking more time, I would like to hand over the session to Tilan Sampath, our moderator for the today's webinar. But before doing that, I would like to introduce our eminent speakers. So today we have Dr. Ramesh Ranavana, Group Chief Analytics and AI Officer of Dialogue Asiata PLC, and Larry Sao, CFA Senior Director, Industry Research, CFA Institute. And Tilan Sampath is our Director and Chairman of CE Events and Scholarship Committee at CFA Sri Lanka. With that, I wish to hand over the session to Tilan and wish a very productive discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Arun. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on ChatGPT and its potential for the investment industry. My name is Tilan Sampath, and I will be your moderator today. As a volunteer, and as Aruna mentioned, I oversee the scholarships and CE event committees for CFA Sri Lanka. And professionally, I have a background in sell-side investment research, and currently, I head a large analyst team for Userbase Sri Lanka, covering emerging technologies and emerging industries focused on the US and European markets. Again, thank you for joining the session today. In addition to Zoom, we are also live streaming this session via Facebook and YouTube. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Zoom chat function to post your questions. Okay, ChatGPT is our topic today, and that is the topic everybody is talking about. It is the fastest growing app of all time and has been visited more than 2 billion times since its launch a few months ago. And why is there so much of hype? Well, if you log into ChatGPT app and use it for 5 minutes, you will realize why. People are amazed at its ability to understand questions, understand context, and provide cognitive and useful answers. People are also amazed at the amount of areas it can provide answers and the level of depth it can provide answers. For an example, if you ask, write me a macro to compile 100 Excel file into one, it does a perfect job in few seconds. This capability has never seen before, never heard before. I can tell from my personal experience, 6 months ago, I was testing out with the AI startup for my own company. We were trying to integrate our content with the AI model. And the conclusion there was that AI model could understand the questions we were asking. but it was difficult for that AI model to give answers. It can direct where the answer is, but giving actual answers was not possible at that point of time. So it seems ChatGPT has done the impossible. Some are even calling the advent of these large AI models as the fourth industrial revolution. It is already making huge changes in industries such as software engineering and marketing content creation. And our own industry, investment and finance industry, it is definitely going to make an impact. Just last week, we saw the announcement of Bloomberg GPT, their own version of the large AI model, which is focused on the investment use cases. So today, we have two high-profile speakers to give you more details. First, we have Larry Kao, CFA, Senior Director, Industry Research at CFA Institutes. He has more than 20 years of experience in the investment industry and has released numerous publications relating to machine learning, data science, and AI models, focusing on the investment industry. The AI handbook Aruna just mentioned was authored by Larry himself, which was released last week. So Larry, it's a privilege to have you here. And I now hand over the session you to take it forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Silam. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys all see it? Wonderful. So my name is Larry Tao. I'm a Senior Director of Research at CFA Institute. So today I'm very happy to talk about ChatGPT and how is that, what's the implication for investment management. So thank you very much, CFA Sri Lanka, for the opportunity to share our research work. So today's talk is based on a number of products we have produced recently. So we first wrote about it in February on the CFA Institute blog. And then we did an interview with NASDAQ recently on the subject. This was a couple of weeks ago, actually. And then a week ago, we just launched our AI handbook that Thilan and Runa both mentioned. And at the launch webinar, we actually had an expert panel to talk about ChatGPT because we wrapped up that handbook in November, and 2 weeks later, ChatGPT was launched. So I think everybody was curious and to see, whether this AI and big data applications in investments, whether this handbook is still relevant after ChatGPT. So we actually invited contributors to the handbook who wrote chapters relevant for the success of ChatGPT to come and talk about ChatGPT. Right? So you see a lot of these conversations. A lot of times, we don't know the authority of the speakers, but in this case, we know these are genuine authorities on the subject, and they specifically wrote about it. So I thought that panel was very engaging and informative, and I've shared that link with you there as well. So the first link is a blog post. The second link is a video interview. The third link is a video of that webinar. But the gist of it, I'll just summarize it quickly here. So what did we talk about in that handbook, right? The handbook is actually a culmination. It was really a long process for us to get to this point. From 2015, started to do research and start publishing more formally in 2017. So we talk about different things, and we felt like this whole research process kind of felt very much like what we showed on the top of that chart, which is this model called the new product adoption model. So it's taught in business schools very much, and it's very popular. So people go through these different stages. Right? People, at the beginning didn't have information, so awareness was key. And then as people develop interest, they really look for information. So this kind of fit what we saw with our 2017. FinTech 2017 report and FinTech 2018, because we first touched on AI in this FinTech 2017 report. They talk about a lot of other things. Mostly talk about the philosophy of Fin has a plus tech, that work with tech and not disrupting the business. But there was not very much interest in the AI stuff back then. And then as 2018 came along, there was a lot of interest. So our report was very popular. We hit the right rhythm, right? We got in tune with people's needs. And from there, people asked, does this thing really work? We were invited to speak at different closed door events. At the end of 2018, a lot of experts worldwide were saying, "Oh, we're having a hard time actually making big data work." So this is very contrarian to what we talk about in that report. And then we said we need to find proof for you. So that's actually the third stage, right? So we found proof for people on 3 continents, in 4 product lines. So no matter where you are, no matter what you do, we found examples that people were using AI and big data productively. So that kind of satisfied people's needs in that stage. And then people's needs have changed. People are asking us, where do I begin? How do our firms begin to do this? So they want to try this, right? So they got to the trial stage. They really want to experiment it. And we produced 2 reports for that needs. In the first one was called T-shaped teams. It's that blue report in the back. And we really wanted to help people say you need to start building this AI enabling organization first, because this is so different than before. It needs an organizational change. And then the second one is this AI handbook, right? It's really what you try to actually experiment with once you have the team. So that's kind of the background. And this is kind of the general structure. And I'll show you what chapters are related to ChatGPT. And that's why we're going through this, all this chapter. So we actually broke down all the major developments in 4 parts, right? Part 1 is just an overview. So machine learning obviously is very popular, data science very popular. So we have 3 chapters on these topics as an overview. So the first one is machine learning. This is mostly quants, right? The second one is alternative data. So this is actually a sell-side research from Goldman, who wrote this for us. So it's kind of fundamental, quantitative, but mostly fundamental. And then Neuberger Berman did this data science for active and long-term fundamental investing for us. So this is mostly for buy-side clients, for how they use the data science for their research. All very fascinating work. I really enjoyed working with them on that. And then part 2 is actually a lot of it is what ChatGPT is about. It is this natural language processing, or what you call NLP, right? But you look at the title, it's different from NLP. It's natural language understanding, processing, and generation. And we didn't change that after ChatGPT came out. We had this well before ChatGPT was developed. So what was important about ChatGPT from a technical perspective? One of the important things was generative AI, right? So this is where it came from, is that natural language generation, right? So you evolve from natural language understanding to processing to generation. So what ChatGPT does is it can speak to you in the natural language, right? You understand what you say, but it also can speak to you. So it's really responding to your questions. So that generation part was important. So I'm very glad that our contributors have surfaced that, so made our handbook different. You read a lot of books, they will just say NLP, but this is different, right? The more advanced development now is this generative AI portion. And part 3 is, we talked to a lot of folks and have found that people do use, machine learning, big data for trading quite a bit. So we had 2 chapters on that. One is written by actually a trading platform vendor. The other one is written by a large hedge fund, Man Group, Man AHL. So they use this quite a bit in different areas. And the last one happens to be, other developments in other areas. And you look at what it is. It's actually chatbot and AI infrastructure. So what is AI infrastructure? This chapter was written by a gentleman from NVIDIA. So it's a hardware acceleration. And what is hardware acceleration? It's just those GPUs they use, right? So ChatGPT actually had some custom AI chips from NVIDIA to make it work. And so that's one of the key success factors. And you check out a lot of these handbooks. I don't see anybody talk about hardware. So mostly, AI, the software business. But we did see this coming. We did see this hardware acceleration as an important element of this process well before ChatGPT. So we actually really pursued this the connection with NVIDIA to have that included. And chatbot, obviously, chatbot is actually very popular, very well used. So we had someone to talk about how to actually work with different chatbot, integrate different chatbot platforms, and integrate and using them, etc. So we had a gentleman to talk about NLP. We had a gentleman to talk about chatbot, and we had the gentleman from NVIDIA who talked about hardware acceleration, and the gentleman from NAHL, the chief scientist from NAHL, joining us. Four of them joined us together to talk about ChatGPT at that panel I just mentioned before. So this is actually coming from the blog post, right? So this is our main thoughts about this. There was a comment to say the voice wasn't entirely clear. Is that better now? I can get closer to the. I didn't use our mic. I'm using the PC's mic. Let me know if that's better. So we talk about three questions in the article. So ChatGPT came out on November 30th, 2022, last year, and I went on vacation for the whole month of December. So, during COVID, you accumulate a lot of vacation time. But during vacation, I found out how exciting, how fascinating this thing is. So after I joined the team call during vacation, I said, I'm going to write about this. This is such a big moment. But then I never delivered on that. It took me until I didn't end up writing it until it's a short article, but I didn't write it until February. And why? It wasn't because I was procrastinating. It was because ChatGPT was so good. Any question you have about it, you can just ask it. You don't need, so what's the point of having me write it, right? I figure what's my value add? So I ended up asking ChatGPT that in February. I said, what do you think I still can write? Because you have all the answers already. And ChatGPT said, you may be able to add sort of this, it's not available everywhere. So you may want to write for people who don't have access to it. And you may want to write for people who are afraid of using this. So there's an accessibility question, right? And then there's another question is that you put things in context. So this contextual question, they say you might be better at ChatGPT. So we wrote a contextual question. And then he said, maybe there are other questions you want to discuss in depth that you can do it better than me. So I ended up writing those three sections, responding to those three comments. So the I feel bad. The audio is too bad. Is that I'll just get closer to the screen, I guess. I'll speak slowly. So let me go back to this. So what's the big deal, right? This is the question. So the big deal is, I wrote three things. There's three things that are big deal for this. So one is, I think it's it really has a way with words. We talk about NLP. We think ChatGPT really has a way with words in the sense that its language is really so very natural. This is one big element of its popularity. And two is because, you beat AlphaZero, AlphaGo, because you really offered everyone a direct opportunity to play with it. Back in the days of AlphaGo, AlphaZero, that's when AI really first got into the living room. People really read about it in the news. This, you can directly experience it. So that's big. And then lastly, three, you really seem to know everything. Before ChatGPT, before this large language model, everything was trained separately. So they know their own area, right? You look at these chatbots offered by financial institutions. They know their own products, etc. You ask them anything else, they wouldn't know. So back then, the metric of measuring chatbots' performance was to see how long they can keep the conversation going, because people get bored after a few rounds. But ChatGPT totally changed all that, right? So it's not like Siri or Alexa or other models that very limited the capabilities. And then this one, it's really very natural in terms of language. And then the contextual question is, who's at risk? So who will this threaten? Everybody was a bit scared, but who does this mostly threaten? We think there are basically two rules to follow to make these predictions. The first rule is AI will go from simple repetitive tasks to more advanced tasks, or in sort of simple terms, go from memorizing things to reasoning, making arguments, logical deduction, induction, etc. So there is a progression that you can see with AI technology. So you go from simple to more complicated, go from facts to reasoning, logic, etc. So that's one direction. And the other direction is the supply of technology, the supply of data, is where data is easily available, where training cost is low. Those are kind of the same thing. If data is freely available, then it just costs less for you to train the model. If the training cost for your area is low, then you'll get to see AI sooner than other places. So based on that, we actually wrote about this in 2018. When we first wrote about how this AI and big data can be used. We said portfolio managers will probably get replaced after the analysts get replaced, right? Because analysts are more about finding and analyzing facts. Portfolio managers are more about portfolio construction, risk management, is how to make these decisions. So based on that simple rule, go from facts to reasoning, etc. So we think portfolio managers will have longer careers. And the other thing is, investors in liquid markets, like U.S. large equity, for example. We imagine AI will first conquer those markets before they go to smaller markets, right? If in a sort of Asian developed markets, a particular currencies, the local bonds, those markets tend to be small and niche. So compared to U.S. equities, they don't accommodate quite as many investors at that large scale. So we think those are the two predictions that we made, who's at risk. But of course, the more your job has to do with words, the more your job is at risk. Because this is, at this stage, still largely a language model. So mostly it remembers facts, but it's got into analysis and reasoning a little bit. Well, not a little bit, but more than a little bit. But why? If you think about it, I think it's because a lot of our reasoning and logic are done in words, right? So I think that's probably it's done in some form of language. So the ChatGPT has turned out to be not only smart with natural languages, but also smart with computer programming languages. I think any structured languages it seems to be able to pick up, and that's kind of its strengths, right? So if your job is closely related to something like that, then your job is more at risk. So I think finance, there's probably a lot more thinking than just finding facts and putting things together. There is a lot of reasoning and arguments, etc., in there. So I think it's maybe not at risk right now, but you look at the trend, I think it is indeed something to be to take note of, because obviously from ChatGPT 3.5 to GPT-4, it only took a few months. So I think that trajectory is indeed very impressive and scary at the same time. So this is kind of the the question now is is, do we think that's where do we think this is going? So where this going is we need to, these questions, I think there are no hard and fast rules, right? This is the deep question. So ChatGPT said it may not be very deep. So this is the question. If you ask ChatGPT and me, we'll give you different answers. If you ask ChatGPT, do you understand anything? They'll say, no, I don't understand anything. I'm just memorizing stuff. But you know, there are people who are wondering. You know, you read the blog post. I have some references there. That there are people who are wondering, well, where is that distinction? You know, of understanding or not understanding. And the machines understanding stuff, people understanding stuff. How do you distinguish that? You know, I think this is where we need a lot more sort of help from biology, from psychology, from the cognitive scientists, basically, to help us understand how is that different. You know, remember AI, how it got its start. AI got started because people were trying to figure out how to simulate human brain. So that's always an aspiration, right? So we want to understand what is going on. And we're not quite sure, you know, what makes humans aware, and what when can we say ChatGPT is also aware? So is it self-aware? That's a question, right? The first is whether you understand. Two, is it, you know, are you self-aware? Do you have emotions? All that. You know, remember there was this one Google engineer said, oh, maybe the computer does understand and have a life, and he got fired. But I think later on there are other reports that people said, wow, this thing really seems to know. It seems to be not different from people, right? There are robots that say, oh, you asked me what's my limitation. My limitation is I don't have emotions. What is a sad day? It's a sad day. It's like, you know, I realize I cannot communicate with you, you know, in these different languages. So you know, it's very hard to tell, you know, how these things work. And the last one, obviously, is will ChatGPT or its offspring attain AGI? This AGI is artificial general intelligence. It's a word AI scientists made up to say that the AGI, if we achieve AGI, it means AI can do most of the things that humans can do. So will we ever get there? Well, I think longer term, you know, depending on how long you think is longer term, that there's obviously a chance, right? But if you ask OpenAI, if you ask ChatGPT, you'll say, no, you know, we're not going there. I'm not AGI, we're not going there. But if you ask OpenAI people, you know, you ask Sam Altman, they are all quite, you know, this is their holy grail. So they're not hiding that they're trying to get there. So, well, obviously, there's a question. If they do get there at some point, what will happen to the rest of us? You know, people are guessing now, you know, looking at ChatGPT and GPT-4, looking at that rate of development. You know, people think maybe by GPT-8 or GPT-10 or whatever iteration, you know, maybe they'll get there. So we just don't know. But you know, if you look at how soon they can, you know, do these iterations, and that's probably why there are these concerned scientists that are calling for you know, stop this development for 6 months to just stop and think. So I think that's kind of all I have, but that's sort of the overall perspective. I talk a bit more about investment implications in that NASDAQ interview, so please feel free to check that out. And our experts talk more about some of the investment applications in the webinar. Please check that out. And I'm happy to also address your questions in the Q&A session. So that's all from me. Back to you, Thilong.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Larry. Yeah, that's definitely very nice to see that CFA has pioneered some of this research. You know, we have been in touch on all these things that are happening. Let me ask one question before we move to the next session, next part of the session. So most of, I think the audience are analysts. Myself is analyst.
Yeah.
So you had the notion that, analyst jobs maybe become shorter, whereas the portfolio managers will become longer. Could you be able to, just immediately how should we, prepare for this kind of changes from our end?
Right, right. Well, I think it's a simple statement to say, looking for information. That used to be a big part of the analyst jobs, right? Because you read about these stories, people go to stores to check foot traffic. People sit by the warehouse to count trucks. Those can be done by AI, but those are not without cost. So I think humans have an advantage in terms of we're very low cost and low energy consumption, compared to some of the other techniques. But by and large, I think as these techniques improve, these cognitive abilities they will get, they will be a lot more capable than we are. So we have just to get beyond getting facts to analyzing facts. I think that's the way you just try to progress to the more sort of higher end, more sophisticated roles. So even for analysts, there's getting data, there's analyzing data, there's compiling a lot of data to do analysis, and which lead to portfolio management decisions. I think in that food chain, you just want to continue to move up. So I think getting facts with these AIs, the cognitive abilities, that will quickly become sort of not, humans will quickly become not competitive. I remember when I started talking about this in 2017, 2018, we talked about AI programs reading capabilities. At that point, it just started to beat the average human beings in reading, and then in listening, in understanding, and in understanding voice recognition, etc. It was all around 2017, 2018, and images, understanding images to tell what's in the image. All those abilities, cognitive abilities, they pass human beings or the average human beings in 2017 and 2018. And it didn't take them that long now to come up with ChatGPT, which is probably smarter than the majority of human beings now in the area that it covers, right? It's not trained on everything. So the prediction we made, when we interviewed with NASDAQ, was that ChatGPT is generic. It doesn't solve everybody's problem. It doesn't solve a lot of direct problems. It's fun. It's a very competent model. But to get to the last mile, to really actually do an analyst job, it needs to be trained in that vertical, right? It needs to understand finance. You mentioned Bloomberg GPT, and there's another one that came out. I think it's called Chat AM or something, which is also customized for asset management. So this is the direction, right? People will customize these large language models for their vertical, even for their firm. Think about a big firm. You would need your chatbots to be trained in your philosophy, in your models, in your products, etc., to be able to explain everything to clients or to potential clients. So that's kind of the trajectory, right? So that's kind of you move on to more sophisticated jobs and ChatGPT as ChatGPT gets more into the business. So we have a little time before they get there. But once they get there, we'll need to continue to adapt, right? Obviously, it's as AI gets more sophisticated, human intelligence need to keep up so that you can continue to play a role. If you cannot keep up, then I think more and more people will probably lose to AI.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, as I understood, so when we were junior analysts so long ago, we used to do a lot of data gathering, like, getting data to Excel. And those are, those are going to be, not the demand anymore. We can't rely on those being an analyst. We need to look
Right?
at that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks, Larry. Just one, I want to check one of our fellow CFAs, Leo, I think you have raised the hand. Probably you have a question. If you have, you can just check now. Maybe the audience can't speak, but Leo, yeah, maybe you can put the question also Q&A. So yeah. Yes, so let's then move to the next session. Larry, thanks so much again.
Great.
There will be more questions we would need your answers. Um, so in the later session,
Yep.
yes,
I will stand by.
yes, thank you very much. Yeah. So so now let's focus on our second eminent speaker today, Dr. Ramesh Ranavana. He's the group chief analytics and AI officer at Dialog Axiata. He has a doctorate in machine learning from University of Oxford, and he's also a global expert in AI machine learning. His recent work has focused on developing machine learning products and helping enterprises scale up their AI capabilities. He will take you through this topic more on a technological and use case angle. So hi, Ramesh. Good afternoon. It's a privilege to have you here.
Good afternoon, Tila.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
yes,
I hope you can hear me.
yes, I can hear you. Yes. Yeah, thanks so much. Then, yeah, over to you for the second part of the session.
Sure. So, good afternoon, everybody. And let me first load my presentation up and can start from there. Can you see my screen, Tila?
Yes.
Yes, good. So basically, what I'm going to talk to you about today is carrying on from Larry's presentation just before me, is to introduce you all to this. I'm sure there's nobody here who hasn't heard of ChatGPT over the last couple of months, and heard a lot about the hype, what everybody's saying, all the horror stories, all the wonderful new opportunities, all the startups. There's so much happening around this space. But really, for somebody who's been in this field of machine learning and AI now for close to 25 years, this is a very, very exciting time for us. Mainly because this is the time that artificial intelligence, for the first time in my life, has now come into the mainstream, where artificial intelligence is available to everybody, and people are now really starting to understand the true power of what artificial intelligence can do. Because until now, it was more, when I started off with my PhD, at that time, it was more an R&D topic where people thought it was a nice thing to have. It was cool stuff, but really you couldn't do too much useful stuff with it. But then over the last few years, more and more companies have been using AI. And if you look at maybe the top companies in the world, maybe the top 10 companies in the world, the Googles, the Microsoft, the AWS, Boeing, Tesla, companies like that, all those companies now owe their success and their market leadership to AI. But it was really those big companies who were able to invest internally and build their systems internally, and that's why they were able to gain that market leadership. But really, what ChatGPT, and I'll explain the whole background behind ChatGPT, what this is doing, is that it has made this powerful AI, these types of AI, which has really been available to people like us for at least the last 3-4 years, available to everybody in a format that anybody can access, can interact with, and really do not just play games or do cool stuff, but actually do useful things and actually add value to how you work and make an impact in the way you work and the way you do what you do. So really, starting from what is ChatGPT? Larry has already answered this question, but basically, from a technical viewpoint, ChatGPT is a computer program that can understand and generate human-like language. In a nutshell, that's it, right? It's a program where it can interact with people using human-like language. And it uses advanced algorithms and machine learning techniques to analyze written text and to generate responses just like a normal person would generate those responses. This is all part of a larger field of artificial intelligence called natural language processing. which is focusing on helping computers understand what people mean by sentences. I mean, a sentence, as you know, is not just a collection of words or the individual meaning of words. When you put them all together, there's a particular meaning to those words, and this is what this whole field of natural language processing is about. And because of, but then what ChatGPT has done is like it has taken this capacity and what you can do with this onto a different level. The comprehension and the types of things you can do with it, and actually how well it performs on a number of tasks has really been a big step up. The way I look at this is that this advent, not really of ChatGPT, but the underlying technology behind ChatGPT. ChatGPT is actually a form of a type of artificial intelligence which came up over maybe the last 5 years, called large language models. And these large language models, it's type of machine learning system which is able to understand text and generate text. And ChatGPT just became probably the first application which went into mainstream and people got to know about it. But actually there are probably about another 50 or 60 similar types of systems out there in the market. And this step up in technology is I've seen this before. Those of you who are around my age, you probably remember how the world changed when internet came out. And then immediately once the internet came out, internet was there, people knew about it, but very few people had access to it and people didn't know how to use it. But the real explosion in the use of the internet came out when Google came out. When the Google search engine came out, and that really made the whole internet available to everybody. Similarly, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we had the mobile phone which came out, and then there were lots of companies who were developing these smartphones. But then the big step up in that whole technology came when the iPhone and the Android platform came out, and that made this technology available to everybody. So really, if you look at the world before the internet and before Google and today, it's very different. If you look at the world before smartphones and today, it's very different. And similarly, if we look at the world today and how it's going to be affected by these large language models over the next few years, it's going to be fundamentally different. This is the impact that these technologies are having. It's going to be and it's going to change the way we live our lives, the way we do our work, and all that. But just like with the internet, just like with mobile phones, there are dangers, there are problems. Those things have to be dealt with, and that's something that's lagging behind at the moment. So the big game changer with these large language models is that they are trained to understand what somebody means when they ask a question. It's not just understanding the meaning of particular words, but it's trained to understand the meaning of those collection of words put together. And I'll show you some examples when I go on to the demo in a bit. But then using that functionality, the potential to build thousands and thousands of applications as robotic assistants to people who do day-to-day work is just unparalleled. That you can now do things that you couldn't imagine doing with a machine, with a computer, even a year ago. You would think that these are the type of things you have to hire a person for. But now you can do things like customer service, personal assistance, language translation, sales and marketing, HR recruitment, knowledge management, R&D, content creation, fraud detection, legal and compliance. All these things are possible with that basic functionality of being able to understand some text and generate some text based on that. And using this through all these different applications, ChatGPT can help businesses improve efficiency, reduce costs, provide better customer service, and all that stuff. And this is all, like I said, based on this technology of AI, this technology, this new type of machine learning technology, which came out, which is actually a really curious story. These large language models are based on a particular type of machine learning called transformer models. And curiously, the company which actually invented transformer models was Google in 2017. But they invented this transformer model and they made it available to the general public. But then now what's happened is another company has taken that technology that they built, which is OpenAI and ChatGPT, and are now being a huge threat to Google themselves. So it's just one of these cycles in technology. where a technology developed by a particular company is actually coming back to haunt them. But it is these transformer models which have allowed us to create these large language models, which then allow us to put some text in. And then this large language model understands what the text is, understands the context, understands what it's about, and then generates some text based on that. And it's a game changer for human-computer interaction. There are, like I said, hundreds of these large language models out there now. Google is developing their own one, BERT and Lambda and all that, Baidu, Huawei, Facebook, all these companies are developing their own large language models. But ChatGPT is based on one type of one particular variation of a large language model called GPT 3.5, and what's come out recently is GPT 4. And these are developed by this company called OpenAI. All machine learning systems are actually modeled on the brain. So they're mathematical models of how the brain works. And so I think the human brain has something like 86 billion parameters or neurons. But GPT-3 and 3.5 actually have 175 billion parameters, which is more than double that of a normal human brain. And it's trained on 45 terabytes of data. So it's a huge gamut of data. It's, it's millions and millions and millions of websites which are being trawled to build this data. And just to show how complex this system is, using one of the most, if you use the most powerful server that's out there at the moment, that's available on AWS and all these different platforms. It's a processor called the A100 processor. To train this, they use 1,024 of these processors to do one training run of the system, and it took 34 days to run this training run. And every time they retrain ChatGPT or GPT-3, it costs OpenAI about $5 million just for that training run on computational cost, electricity, and all this stuff. But then the scary thing is they've just launched GPT-4, which has about I think about 500 times more parameters than GPT-3 has. So it's much more powerful. It takes longer to train. It's much more expensive to run and things like that. So let's just go into a quick demo. I'll show you how this works. I'll show you a quick example of some of the things that you can do with ChatGPT. Give me a second to open the screen up. Bear with me for a second. I hope you can see my screen. Tilan, can you see my ChatGPT screen loaded up?
Yes, Ramesh. Yeah, we can see.
Excellent. So basically, when you open up ChatGPT, what you get is it's a really boring screen when you load up. But you have this on the left-hand side. You have all the different chats that I've done over the last few weeks. And then here you get to select which large language model you want to use. You can use the 3.5 or the GPT-4, which I have a subscription for, so I have access to GPT-4 as well. I'll just start with some examples with 3.5, and I'll go on to some more advanced examples with 3.6. But basically, you can start with something really simple. Like I said, it's a conversational bot, which you can have a conversation like you're having with a normal person. So I can ask it a simple question like, give me 10 recipes for chicken curry. And it should immediately, give me 10 recipes for chicken curry. That's one. And it gives me the instructions, the ingredients, the instructions, and all that. Then recipe number 2, and it will stop. So I can go more direct. I can say, give me the dish names instead. So now you see there are 2 chicken curry recipes that it has generated for me. And I can say, give me 8 more options. So big difference with ChatGPT is that it's like a real person. You can have a conversation with it. It remembers what you asked it to do earlier. So you don't have to keep repeating what you said. It has memory. So when I said, give me 8 more options, it knows that it has given me those 2 options earlier. And it doesn't have to repeat those again. It just carries on from where the thing earlier. So let's say I want to now go out shopping to cook one of these. So I can say, generate a shopping list for the first option. This what it'll do is it will take that first curry that was on my list and generate a shopping list on what I need to buy. If I was going to the supermarket to come and make this dish, let's say change the shopping list to cook for 8 people. So I'm just playing around with that prompt that I created earlier. I'm not creating anything new. What I'm doing is I'm now interacting with it and asking it to make some changes based on my personal preferences. So I'm just saying change this shopping list so I can shop to cook enough for 8 people. So immediately you see that from the earlier one where it said 1 pound boneless chicken, now it's changed all the numbers to 4 pounds because it's calculated how much I need when I was going to do this for 14 people. Let's do something a bit more financial. Let's take, I've got a central bank report. So what I have here is a report from the central bank, the last central bank governor's report, which I've just copied and pasted. So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to open up a new chat, and I'm going to say, you are a chatbot. And I'll say, can you summarize the following text? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that whole central bank governor's report, as you can see. This was, the 2022 report, where it says the Sri Lankan income reading governor 2021. It's a long bit of text, but all I'm going to say at the start is to summarize the following text. So ChatGPT is actually remarkably good at summarizing text by looking at something and generating a shorter version of that. So now you see it's reading that, it's understanding it, and it's creating a blog. It's creating a bit of text, a summary for me on this. So I can say reduce this to 100 words. So it's taking that same thing, but now it's doing this with much less words. Let's try something a bit more difficult. I say rewrite this for a 10-year-old. So you see, it's made it much more simpler. It's taken out the whole financial part of it. So the Sri Lankan economy grew by 3.7 in 2021 after getting smaller by 3.6 because the virus that made people sick. All parts of the economy got bigger, like farming, factories, and services. So I can even go further. I can say rewrite this for a 5-year-old. Yeah, so you see, it's made it even simpler. I can take this and say create a Twitter post on this. So this is the real power of ChatGPT. It understands context. It understands your question for one, and it also remembers the questions that you asked earlier. Let's get a bit more financial, so you can relate to how this works. What I'm going to say is I can say extract keywords from the following text. I'm going to paste that same central bank report that I typed earlier. So this could be really, really useful when you are doing analysis on a particular report, and it's a long report which you need to summarize. You need to generate the keywords. Instead of keywords, I can say extract financial keywords from this text. You can see it generates all the different financial keywords from it. I can say extract all the named entities. Yeah, it's only one named entity, Department of Census and Statistics. I can say extract important dates and representative events. So important dates from this text. If this, yeah. So it accepts all the different mentions of dates, and it's given me this as a bullet point list. So as you can see, it's really like having having an analyst or a research assistant, or somebody who will help you with your work, who will have to spend usually hours, days going through these reports and summarizing this stuff for you and extracting information that you want. And this is really a game changer for that type of work. I can say something like this. We can ask a question like this: extract all financial numbers, what they represent, and the date they were reported from the following text. So I'm going to paste it. Get the text out. Yeah. Now it's extracting all the different financial numbers, what those numbers represent, and the date that they were represented in the report. So this, I'm sure you all can see, is something that usually takes a long time to put together. You can even say something like analyze the sentiment of this text. So you can say overall the language used in the text appears to be mostly neutral, informative, with a focus on providing facts and data about the performance. Therefore, the sentiment of the text is mostly neutral. Let's use another example. This is something that we use a lot at work. Something simple like just writing a letter. So I'm going to start a new chat for that, because I don't want the text to be influenced by the questions that I asked previously. And in this, what I'm asking is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ChatGPT to write a letter for me. So I'm going to say write a letter to a customer who has complained about bad customer service. You start with this, and the really cool thing about ChatGPT is that you can then keep massaging your message, massaging what you get it to do it for you. So initially it generates a letter form. I'm writing to express my sincere apologies for the poor customer service experience, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty decent letter, but now I'm going to add more and more details. Add the following details to I'm going to say company name, ABC Private Limited, customer name, root customer service. It's taken the same letter and it's now adding these details that I asked it to add. Dear Mr. Pera, I'm writing to you on behalf of ABC Company Limited to extend our serious apologies for the rude customer service experience during your recent interaction. Your satisfaction is a top priority, and we regret shortfall. So I'm going to say is I'm going to give the customer some sort of reward offer customer a credit of rupees 5,000 as compensation for the lapse in service and for his continued loyalty. You see, it takes this bit of information that I gave and it weaves it all into this letter. Express our regret, continued loyalty, and will offer you a credit of rupees 5,000. So I can take this letter now and say change this letter to an email. So immediately it takes that letter but changes the whole context as to how you would write it in an email. It's obviously they've created a subject. But the rest, it's made it more this thing. I can say change this to an SMS. So this is the remarkable thing. It's taken that whole long letter, but they now create an SMS with 255 letters or whatever. That's the limit for this type of letter. Now let me show you something a bit more related to what financial analysis. So I'm going to start a new chat and I'm going to switch on to GPT-4, which is a lot more powerful and can deal with this type of thing. So what I've done is I've taken some financial reports that Tilan sent me, the Microsoft financial reports from last year, and I pre-prepared it to insert into ChatGPT. And so what I'm going to do is I don't have the time to type all this, so I'm going to paste it. I had pre-prepared this, but basically what I'm telling the chatbot, and this is the cool thing about GPT-4, you can actually assign a particular persona file. So you're a chatbot for chartered financial analysts to ask questions on the following financial data. And then I have all this information which I've created on this, which I've copied, and I've done a little bit of formatting to make it suitable for entering into ChatGPT. And I enter, and now ChatGPT will process this data and try to understand it. So it says below is a summary of key financial metrics from the provided financial data for Microsoft Corporation, and it starts to analyze this data. And it tries to get the key financial information that it thinks it can infer from this information. Talks about total revenue in 2022 versus 2021, gross margin, the operating income. GPT-4, as you can see, is a little bit slower. Not a little bit slower, it's quite a bit slower because it's a much larger model and they need more computers to run this. But as you can see, this is the type of work that all of you all will do on a day-to-day basis, looking at these reports, looking at large sets of numbers, and how you're going to manage this. Yeah, so it keeps going through these texts and try to identify, try to answer these different questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now ask a few questions. I'll say do analysis of cash flow ratios, which I can execute soon after it's done generating this bit of information. It's already doing cash flows. So it's doing a remarkably detailed analysis of this. And I'm sure every single one of you can immediately now start to see the value of what this is doing, the amount of time you will save, the quality of work that you will produce, your throughput, your output. All this is a game changer, especially if you can link this to an application where you can ask this type of questions on your Excel file itself. That's a game changer without having to have a programmer like me who can prepare this data to enter into ChatGPT, and we can help you with that. We are already doing that type of work at Dialog. So that's something that we want to help more and more people do. So let's ask my question now. Do analysis of something a bit more detailed, which is already done. Cash flow analysis. I'm going to say analyze trends and factors affecting cash flow performance. So several trends and factors have affected Microsoft cash flow based on the provided financial data. Here's an analysis of these trends and factors. Revenue growth. Microsoft total revenue has increased by 6% for 6 months. However, the growth in revenue might not be substantial enough to maintain the cash flow performance from the financial year. A decrease in net income. Despite the growth in total revenue, the net income for the 6 months ended was decreased by 13.5 compared to the same period in 2021. Stock price dividends, return value to shareholders through stock purchases and cash dividends. So it really, this is why I keep telling you, this is why this technology is such a game changer. Its ability to be able to comprehend so many different types of information, from numerical data to image data to Excel files to code to everything on the same platform, and provide the same level of service where you can ask questions, you can query it, you can summarize it, you can convert it into different formats. That's just the power of that. The power of that functionality is mind-boggling. Stop generating. I'm going to say create a newspaper article on this financial report. Let's say 100 words. It's able to, extract the most pertinent information here. The revenue increase, decline in net income, changes to working capital, and yeah, that's done. I can say convert this to a TikTok post. See what it is there. There you go. Yeah, so the possibilities with this type of thing are just endless on the type of things you can do with this. Let me go back to my presentation to wind up on this presentation. We can move on to the Q&A. We just did the demo. So really what this technology allows you to do is significantly improve the efficiency of your work and also the accuracy of your work. You're transforming from the olden days where you would be surrounded by hundreds of these documents to a world where the technology would collect all this information, generate its insights, and present it to you. And you would be the person then who would drive this technology and ask the questions and actually drive it in the direction that you want it to. So it's a totally different way of working in terms of efficiency and accuracy. Efficiency, the amount of work you can get done in the same amount of time. and accuracy is because you have the ability now to draw in from so many different sources of data. That also means that you can improve the accuracy of what you produce. So AI assistance for financial analysis is the future, and this I stress on the word assistant. I don't think that you guys are going to lose your jobs anytime soon. What's really going to happen is that these systems are going to augment the way you work, and those of you who use this technology for your work will be able to produce much better results than those who don't, and that's going to be the difference. It's those people who understand this technology, know how to use it best, and know how to get the most out of it. You all will be the superstars in your field, and those who don't will fall behind and start. They won't be relevant anymore. So now the question is how you get to that point where you can how you can leverage this technology and bring this into the way you work, where you understand what this AI is good at, and you use that AI for what it is good at, but also understand what the AI is bad at, because that is your opportunity. That's your opportunity where you can shine and you can add value and build that ecosystem where you're working together with the technology to actually provide the best service for your clients, for your company, or whatever. So the potential of this technology is that these AI assistants can analyze vast amounts of financial data in real time and provide you insights, recommendations, which would normally take days, months, years sometimes. They can remove human biases, human error. They can assist in analyzing complex financial data. But the challenges here is that to actually get this to work, you need large amounts of high quality training data. And actually collecting that data is still a challenge. They can produce inaccurate results, which you then have to be intuitive enough, knowledgeable enough to understand when it has got something wrong. And it also requires skilled personnel to develop, train, and maintain these systems, which is quite a challenge. So if you were to start using ChatGPT in your work, where can you start? So one is, first step I would say, is identify the specific financial analyst tasks where a technology like ChatGPT can be most useful, such as risk management, forecasting, data analysis, things like that. Then if you're going to train your own system, ensure that the data you collect to train ChatGPT is of high quality and unbiased. If it's only data of a particular type, then your system is not going to work that well. Then you have to collaborate with data scientists, developers to build a ChatGPT system that's customized to you, customized to your data. And then integrate all this into a final ChatGPT system where you can interact with it into your daily work. And that's where all of this would start. But you also got to understand that ChatGPT does have its limitations. Even though it's very, very good at understanding context much more than other programs, it still has a limited understanding of the larger picture. It understands the meaning of a sentence or several sentences, but it may not understand the underlying intentions behind something. It lacks emotional intelligence. It doesn't have the ability to have physical experiences, so it could recommend things which are really not practical and can't be done. It has limited knowledge base. It only knows what it was trained on. So obviously it has a dependence on training data. And it has inability to learn from experience, or limited ability. So the true power of ChatGPT, the way I see it as an engineer, is the ability for you to train ChatGPT on your own data, to retrain ChatGPT. And here, this is where you have the power. If you have lots of data, if you have lots of customer interactions, if you have lots of information going back years, you can build your own ChatGPT on that data. And that will increase the relevancy and accuracy of the responses for your company or your customers. You can tailor responses to your specific industry, and you can fine-tune the way ChatGPT works through the tasks that you're working on. And that's something that we also can help you on. We have a full-time team at Dialog now who is working on ChatGPT based applications, and we have about 15 different applications on the pipeline, which we are building. So we're happy to help if you all start similar programs. So do speak to us. Tilan, I think that's the end of my talk. We can start the Q&A, I think, now.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much, Ramesh. Yeah, that's pretty useful. And the AI assistant for analysts, I think that was the answer we were looking for. I think the participants are mostly analysts. So how we should look at it is, we need to embrace ChatGPT essentially. That's what we want to do. We should just get to know this and, to figure out how we can use it. And my personal experience also, it's this prompt engineering is becoming a big thing. That means trying to figure out. Who knows? People are trying to figure to do it in different ways, and there are different prompt gives different answers. So we just
And
keep finding.
it is similar to Google searching, right? Google searching on its own is a skill. There are some people who can find anything on the internet and go in and find, and some people who can't. And that, in a way, is the first form of prompt engineering, where you typed in that search query. This is just on a different level.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Ramesh. So let's go to the questions. I think, yeah. So Larry, yeah, please add to the any questions. Also, I can pick. So one thing actually comes which Ramesh picked up also, but Larry, I think this is more question for you. On the accuracy and reliability section, how can the investment industry, as analysts, we should look into that? Is there any particular?
Yeah, that's part of it. That ChatGPT is a generic model. It's not ready for for use in real life, but in a lot of cases yet, right? So one is that the GPT, the P is pre-training, so it needs to be pre-trained. So that makes it reliable, but at the same time, if you can't write a report based on like a year-old data, so you need more new data. So and then it's a language model. It's not trained to, like Google, to rank the results. You actually just keep the conversation going. Even though they're making enhancements, the main goal is actually to keep the conversation going instead of giving you 100% truth. There's no way to tell what is truth. So in a lot of ways, we've proposed this philosophy in very early days. We said, it's not going to be fintech replacing financial services. It's going to be fin plus tech. And then as it evolves in the age of AI, it becomes AI plus human intelligence, AI plus HI. So at least, you have to go through like some human checking. Someone needs to look at it, etc. But as these things evolve, I don't sort of suspect, and I don't doubt that this would actually be able to get us there eventually. If it's not ChatGPT, it'll be some other model. It will give us more accurate facts and truths. We just don't know what is that, when that's going to be yet. And I think Ramesh and I both talk about this other direction is this ChatGPT, this generic model, will be customized for different industries, will be customized for different firms even. But it has to be a large enough industry, it has to be a large enough firm to be able to pay for that $5 million training cost on a regular basis, right? So this is not something you can train once and then you can leave it there for like 2 years. You have to do this often enough to update everything. And so there should be enough differentiation and everything. So I think it's just part of the evolution. The most scary part, though, is that evolution doesn't seem to be a question anymore. From AlphaZero, AlphaGo to ChatGPT took a long time. From 2017, 2018, when the cognitive abilities, AI's cognitive abilities beat human beings, beat the average human being, to today, it didn't take that long. And particularly from ChatGPT to GPT-4, it didn't take very long at all. So I don't think it's a question anymore. It's like whether they'll get there. It's just how soon they'll get there. They keep surprising people now.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just taking to another question to Ramesh, you mentioned that there are at least 60 other models which are being, in operation. So, I mean, from your, from your probably the industry knowledge, what are the things we should be aware of, like, if we are really going into this, like, if we are really starting to use this?
I mean, essentially, technologically, they are all pretty much the same. They're all neural networks. They're built on this transformer technology. What really makes them different is the data that they're trained on. Where was this data obtained from? Was it legally obtained? How did they pre-process the data? How biased is the data? And that's stuff that we are still finding out. ChatGPT is the one that's come out and we know most about it. But as you found with Google's launch of BERT, within 5 minutes of launch, it was immediately it made a mistake and they had big problems on that. But essentially, what makes them different is how big the system is. How, like I said, the number of parameters in it. Like GPT-4 has now gone to 100 trillion or something parameters, and there'll be larger and larger models coming out and costing more. This thing. So, in terms of us, really, you got to see, like Larry said, are they generic models that are used for anything, or are they specialized models? And if we were to retrain them on our data, how difficult or expensive are these retrainings going to be? How much data do I need to retrain something? And even within retraining, there are two types of retraining. You can train the model from scratch with your own data, or there's also another way of like doing a slight tweak on a little bit of data called fine-tuning your data. And that's a lot cheaper. I mean, we fine-tune models very often now at Dialog, and it costs us about $100 or $200 every time we fine-tune it on our data. But it's not as good as retraining it from scratch, but it's good enough for most of the stuff that we do. So really, there'll be more of these systems coming out, and everybody will start claiming, different features. This can do this, this can't do that. But now the changes you will see will be very incremental. It'll be more of the race will be on what data it was used to train it on, and also what safeguards these companies will put in place once the output comes out to make sure that it's not wrong, it's not biased, things like that. So now the race is more on that front rather than these LLMs, because LLMs are LLMs. They're built on the same technology. They can be bigger and smaller, but essentially they are the same.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. Yeah, actually that's very good insights. Yeah, that now the race started. Yeah, training internal model. I mean, even like personally, I was thinking, okay, this is the time we should try to integrate, fine tune the model and try to see whether we can present that to our clients.
Right.
Yes. That's
and
good.
within that capacity, how to pre-process the data, how to prepare your data. I mean, there are not 50 or 60. There are literally hundreds of people building LLMs at the moment. There are so many out there. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, and eventually it comes down to that data that it was trained on. And I think over time there'll be more laws on what data is permissible to be used to train an LLM. So really, I think the race will eventually come to which company has legal access to the most amount of data. Because at the moment, a lot of the data that even ChatGPT is using is not legally obtained. They've just scraped it from the web. And those, I'm expecting in the next year or two, laws will block that. Yes. So then it's those companies which have access to the most amount of data legally will probably have the best LLM.
Okay.
So it's more content and licensing game than the actual technology at that point, I think.
That's very insightful thoughts. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Currently, I think ChatGPT has access to all the novels. I think thousands and thousands of novels, right? If you ask any questions, so probably those are not legally obtained for sure.
That's right. So this, I think, will change. It's got to change, and the laws will come in.
Yes, great. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. So let's go to the questions we have from the audience. We have some questions, quite a few questions have come. Let me pick few so we can answer. Okay, so maybe this is Larry, something you can also, but it's tech part as well. Can we create financial models with our own data?
But not with the ChatGPT original model, because I think it's they use your data eventually, but GPT, my understanding is it's pre-trained, so it's not. They do tweaks, but it's not sort of like your prompt is part of that would generally lead to different results, but it doesn't change the fundamental model. It doesn't change the model of other people, for example. So if you want to train it, you have to. My imagination is depending on OpenAI's business model. Eventually, they will license it to other people to train it, or even to host it on your own server. So that way, you're sure this is not accessible by other people. Train on your own data, available to your own people to use. But that if that want to go down that route, so far they didn't seem to have to worry about money. So they have backers. They're not going there. They're just working on the original model, but not the training model.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Yeah. As another related question, how can we use ChatGPT for equity valuation? And this is where the portfolio manager comes.
Well, it's not as of yet, as far as I can see.
Yes. Okay. So that's a question. Yeah. Which technology going to rule the world and who are going to survive? I think, yeah, Ramesh answered that previously. Yeah, so this is an interesting question. What is your take on Bloomberg GDP? Probably again, Larry, if you have seen it, or Ramesh, if you have seen it. I haven't.
Well, I have not
It's just
tried.
it's just another large language model trained on a different quantum of data obtained from Bloomberg, and so anything that was in that particular bit of training set, it'll answer really well, and it'll be fine-tuned towards those particular tasks. So, and you will see more and more like this coming up over time. GPT for marketers, the GPT for salespeople, GPT for physics teachers, chemistry teachers, finance teachers. You will have more and more of these models which are only trained on a particular subject, which means that that model will be much better on that particular specialty.
Yes, actually, yeah.
So we have Bloomberg contribute to one of our early AI publications, right? 2019, we published the report I mentioned, AI Pioneers, and Bloomberg was a contributor to talk about the sentiment analysis, which they have been doing for much longer than anybody else in the finance business. The ChatGPT thing with Bloomberg, though, I was still a bit surprised because it's still a major investment. It's a major effort. Their model is a little smaller. There's also ambiguity, and I'd love to hear Ramesh's thoughts on this as well. It is, this is not only adding stuff. This is probably reducing stuff from ChatGPT as well, right? Because they have a smaller number of variables. They're training on a specific number of data points. So it's not the same large language model anymore. So it's not only adding, it's subtracting. And I'm not sure we're getting exactly the same thing. And I'm not sure what's the path in the future. Is it this reduction, or are you going to add more stuff to ChatGPT? I would hope it's adding rather than subtracting. It looks like this model is a subtracting model.
This is solving one of the big problems with these large language models, in that you need very, very high compute power to run this.
Right.
And it's only the large companies can run it. So
that's right.
Facebook came out with their own large language model called Llama, which is about I think about 10,000 times smaller than GPT-3, and it can actually run on a laptop. You can get it to run on a PC. Now it's called Llama, LLAMA, and that they claim is about as 80% as good as ChatGPT or GPT-3, but the difference is that you need much less compute power to run this. So it's a balance between that, how much data you train, the compute power you have, how much money you have, and all that. But there'll be, I think this is going to be a bit of a rat race over time now. It's going to be on one side, it's going to be on the model, other side, the compute power, but the real big one is going to be the data people actually use to train these systems.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Ramesh. Yeah, there's one more question. There's a generic question. How to make money using ChatGPT?
I mean, if you look at the number of startups which have come out over the last 2 months built on the GPT API, and I'm sure you all know that GPT has an API which you can call with your own program. You pay some money to OpenAI for every single call you make. It's the number of new startups, I think, that are there now based on GPT-3 are in the hundreds. So instead of me giving you ideas, just look for GPT-3 or OpenAI startup or ChatGPT startup, and you'll probably get hundreds of results coming back. And each one of those is obviously an opportunity.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, let me just quickly check the rest of the question.
I'll have to run pretty quickly. I have another meeting right after this.
Sure, Larry. Yeah. Thanks so much. Yes, I think we can conclude. Yeah, if you have any concluding remarks, Larry.
Well, I think this is a very exciting time. We all need to figure out what is our strength and what is AI's strength. I think what Ramesh said is exactly what we have been saying for some time as well. Is to, so far we continue to see the future will be AI plus human intelligence. But AI is evolving, and human intelligence need to evolve with it. So I think we need to figure out our strengths, our positioning, and continue to leverage AI in the future rather than becoming dominated by AI in the near term. But I think at the same time we need to be conscious on the lookout on this AGI discussion and see where that's going. I think that's a very important angle that maybe that hasn't received as much attention as it should in the finance business. But AGI is for everybody. If that ever becomes true, that will affect the entire humankind. It's like ESG. The climate change doesn't only affect the climate scientists. Really, it's for everybody to worry about. So that is the future that I think we need to start thinking about seriously as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Larry. Yeah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, Ramesh, if there are any concluding remarks from your side.
Yeah, I think, all I got to say is that this technology now is here to stay. And just like any new technology, it's got its bad sides and it's got its good sides, but any new technology takes about 3-4 years to normalize and people to figure out how to use it properly and the laws to come in place. So the next 3-4 years is going to be a period of significant change in just about every single industry, every single job. So for those of you who want to survive beyond that, you got to keep up to date with what's going on and keep in touch with how your industry is changing, or you could be left behind. But you can't avoid this. I think it's here to stay now. It could be ChatGPT, it could be another large language model somebody else has created, but this stuff is it's going to be part of our lives now going forward.
Yes, thanks so much, Ramesh. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so both of you again, really value your contributions and your thoughts. It's really great to hear. It's it's very different insights we get from different angles. It's really wonderful. So we can conclude the session. Before conclude, this is something I mentioned to my analyst team about maybe 4 weeks ago, but it got confirmed today. We have to embrace this. That's the game. That's the name. We have to get to know how to use it and become better analysts ourselves using this. It's not going to do our 100% of the job. That's for sure in the near future, as Ramesh said. Yeah. So thanks everybody who joined and asked questions. We will maybe try to answer some of the question offline also. Yeah. So until next time, thank you, and we'll see you again. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Yes, Aruna, are you there?
Yeah, Tilal. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think, yeah,
So
let